Hello and welcome back, I'm ShyWizard. This is going to be part 2 of adding tobacco into a map. So I'm going to continue on here and set up the fill planes and particle systems for my sample mod map. Now the way that this has been set up on this particular map, I believe is using the standard sort of P systems folder, if I remember rightly. Going to have a look through here, yeah, P systems, then we have our fill planes and particle systems. I'm going to do it slightly differently because this has a lot of additional fruit types and fill types with apple, cabbage and so on and so on, and because I'm going to base this around maize, I want to set up all of the appropriate header animations and whatever else, but I'm just going to take what I need from here and just bring it over as I require it. So what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use the Giants standard material holders and then create my own around it. So I've come into the installation folder for Farming Simulator 17. For me this is Steam Apps Common, Farming Simulator 17. I've come into the data folder here because this is where the fill planes and particle systems folders are. So let's start with fill planes, and what I'm going to do is open this one up in Giants Editor, and I'm just going to go with maize in this particular case. You can choose whichever one you want, but the maize has all of the appropriate parts that I'm going to need. So I'm going to basically just copy over or export this out as it is and then make my changes accordingly. So I have the maize fill plane section highlighted. Doesn't really matter about the name because I'm going to rename it anyway to tobacco. So I'm just going to go File, Export Selection with Files, going to go to my desktop, I'm going to create a new folder. Again, this doesn't matter what you're going to call it because it's going to be renamed anyway, so just type in anything you want there, and we'll keep the parent directory structure, that's fine. I'll close that down. One thing to note when working with anything from the Farming Simulator 17 installation folder, when you open it in Giants Editor, make sure when you close it again, if it asks you do you want to save, click no, because if you click yes, potentially you will have problems in multiplayer and it may break your game anyway. So it's always just, a good idea to click no when you're working with anything to do with the Farming Simulator installation i3Ds. Okay, so let's minimize that for now, and I'll open up the fill planes folder on my sample mod map here. I have my i3D with all the textures. Obviously I'm not going to need the maize textures because I'm going to be working with tobacco, so I'm going to copy over the i3D. Actually I'll just move them because I don't need them afterwards, it'll just be deleted, so I'll get rid of that folder, and I'm going to take my shader XMLs and just cut those with Control X, and I'm going to come back to the shaders folder and just paste them in there like so. Keeps everything neat and tidy without having multiple folders all over the place for no reason. Okay, so if I then come back into the fill planes folder, and I'm going to go into here and edit this. So I actually want a diffuse, normal and specular. Again, this is going to be entirely up to you how you do this. You can just point everything to this folder if you want to, or if you prefer you can copy these and then put them in the fill planes folder. Again, whichever way is going to work for you, but by doing this you're going to obviously have duplicates of textures which already exist somewhere else. It might be better to put it in the fill planes folder just to keep everything structured somewhat, so you know that the fill planes textures are in the fill planes folder and the tip on ground textures are in the tip on ground folder. Again, entirely up to you how you want to structure that. I mean, these aren't exactly massive files, so it's not going to really cause any problems there. So I'm going to take the name here, and I did actually spell it correctly, so fantastic. So let's take that from there, and we'll overwrite this one, and we'll just take that from there and just overwrite all of these like so. My HUD is obviously in a different place, so I need to locate that and change that path file name to it. So mine are in fruit HUDs like so. So if I take that name from there, and I like to copy and paste because it just means that everything is spelt correctly and it's going to match. So I actually want to go to here. The // basically means that it's in a previous folder. So if I'm in my fill planes folder here, I'm going to go back one folder and then go into the fruit HUDs folder. So that's what the // means. So I've // fruit HUDs, and obviously I need to change the name there for my tobacco. So I'm going to take this one. Make sure you choose the full version, not the small version. So I'm going to take that one and then just basically overwrite all of that like so. Excellent. Okay, so if I take the tobacco again from here, because I'm going to change all of these parts, I don't want it to say maize, I want it to say tobacco, so I'm going to change all of these. This is not absolutely required. It doesn't really matter because it's just a name for your material, but I like it to say what it actually is. So I'm going to also do, let's do external shapes. Yeah, that's fine. We can, actually I'm going to leave that as 1. Because it's pointing to an external shapes folder, it might cause problems. Actually, I'm just going to go for it. Let's do that like so, and I'll just rename the shapes folder. Should work. We'll see what happens. So let's do that, and that for all of those, and this one here, and that one there like so. Actually, I'm going to rename that. I'm going to put it back to 1 because I'm not sure, because it's an external shapes folder, it might cause problems. So I'm just going to leave it at 1 for now, and then I'll rename it when I save it again. External files are a little bit weird to work with, and because they're encrypted, I can't actually go in and see what needs to be changed in there. So it's just easier to make or allow Giants Editor to do it for me. But all of the other stuff should be fine. So if I go ahead and save that, go back into my fill planes folder, and we'll open this up. We have no errors in the console, fantastic. We have our parts here, we have all of our material holders set up, and they're all saying tobacco, fantastic. So what I can do now then is go File, Save As, and then just rename this. So again, you can name this whatever you want, so I'm just going to go fill planes underscore material holder. Make sure I spelled it correctly, and we'll go save. If I close that down, I can now delete this because I don't need that. And if I actually open this back up again, we can see now it's actually got the external shapes file set up correctly. Okay, and everything is named appropriately, so that's fantastic. Okay, so next then what we need to do is work with our particle systems. Now these are a little bit trickier to work with in some cases. I've had some problems, but hopefully we can work through those as we go along. So if I go back into this, the Farming Simulator 17 installation folder, go to particle systems. I'm going to work with my cutter effect to start with, so we'll open this one up. And let's go into here. So again, we'll just choose, because this has 3 different types, because it's maize, I'm basing it all around maize. You could choose sunflowers if you wanted to, but again, then you'll have problems with foraging with the forage harvester, because it won't have the correct growth stages set up in the textures for whatever else. So again, this comes back to what I said earlier on. If you're not going to, use a forage harvester, then this will be irrelevant, and you could use something like sunflowers instead to base it all around. But your particles and whatever else. But I want to go with maize, so that's what I'm going to go with. Just a preference, but whatever. So I need to basically export these out and then bring them into a new Giants Editor session. So what I'm going to do is actually take these out individually and then build everything up around it. So if I actually take the first one here, File, Export Selection with Files, and I go to my desktop here, again, doesn't matter what you call this, so I'm just going to go like so, open the folder up, and we'll go like that, and then I'll take this one, Export Selection with Files, and then we'll do this one, Export Selection with Files, and save. Okay, so I can close that down now then, and I'll minimize that. So if I come into here, we have our O3Ds and we have our appropriate parts. So what I'm going to do then is let's copy. What I'll do is, I think what I'll do is I'm going to open up a new Giants editor session here. And what I need to do is create two new transform groups. The first one is going to be called cutting. And the second one is going to be called shaders. And then I need to take the shaders one, Control X, click on cutting and paste it in like so. Okay, then what I need to do is basically import all of the parts into this new Giants editor session and then make my changes appropriately later on. So if I go File, Import 1, and we'll go Control X, Shaders, Control V, File, Import 2, Control X, Shaders, Control V, File, Import 3, Control X, Shaders, Control V. Like so. Obviously at the moment it's still showing maze, but that's what we're going to change next. So I need to save this out. So I'm going to go File, Save As, and then we'll just call this, what have we got on the original one? Let's take this name from here, keep it simple, and we'll just save that into that folder. So now I have this set up here, I can copy everything over and then make my changes. So I'm going to go Particle Systems, so I'll take both of those and just move them over like so. And then also I need to copy over the shaders and the foliage. Again, however you build this is entirely up to you. I'm just going to keep it simple and put everything, because I'm only working with one texture, doesn't really matter. So I'm just going to bring it into here. I can link it to the foliage folder or whatever, whichever way you want to do it. So I'm going to come into the shaders folder here and Control X, Control V, put that into there. Don't need any of this other stuff anymore, so I can delete all of that. So I'm just going to put that in the trash can. And then if I come back into here, open this up, I want to point this into the correct folder and also the correct texture. So if I go back into my foliage folder and take the name there for the tobacco, come back into here and overwrite that one. And again, I can then take the tobacco text and overwrite all of these to do with maze. Again, like I say, not 100% required, but it's just something I like to do so it all matches in with the fruit type I'm going to be working with. And we have our external shapefile set up correctly, that's fine. So I'll come down to here and I'll do that one, that one, that one, and then just change our fill type or fruit type for tobacco. Like so. Okay. We'll go ahead and save. Close that down. Go back into Particle Systems, open up the cutter effect, material holder, in Giants Editor, no errors in our console, and we now have, apologies for the train, we now have our correct setup for textures to do with tobacco. Fantastic. So I can close that one down, don't need to save it. That's all now set up in there perfectly fine. So we have our fill planes and our particle systems for the cutter effect. So next one then would be for our effect material holder. So if we open this one up in Giants Editor, again this is from my Farming Simulator 17 installation folder. There's going to be a few in here because we have different ones for different settings. So I'm going to again work with maze. So we have one for unloading. If I hold left control, we can select multiple ones. So we have one for smoke. Straw is not going to be relevant. We have one for chopper, so I want that one. Sprayer, spreader, we have one for pipe, so I'm going to choose that one. Mower is not relevant. One for belt, one for leveler, and one for... no, that's it. Okay, so we have all of those selected. So again, I'm going to go File, Export Selection with Files, go to my desktop, new folder. Again, doesn't matter what you call this. And we'll do like so, and then close down the Giants Editor session. So if you minimize that. So if I come into here now then, we have our maze, diffuse and normal. So there's a lot of different parts you need to bring in to work with this. So I'm just literally going to copy all of those or highlight all of those, drag them over and move them into that folder. I can get rid of that folder now. Fill planes I don't need because these are for maze, so it's not relevant, so I'll put that into there. And I'm just going to take all of the shaders here, Control X, go to my shaders folder and put them all into there like so. I can then get rid of that folder. Fantastic. Go back into the particle systems folder, and again I need to open this in Notepad++, and then just look through all of these and point them in the right places for what I need. So the only ones I'm going to need to change here are the fill planes. So if I come back into the map here, fill planes, and take my tobacco diffuse, overwrite that one, and then just change the name. Take the name there, overwrite that one. All the others are going to be set up correctly there, and again, depending on what you want to do here, you can change all of these over to tobacco, just so it all matches in with the fruit type we're working with. Oops. Do this one. Now, maybe a easier way of doing this with the find, search, replace, but sometimes I find that really doesn't work for me, so I prefer to just do it manually. That way I can get an idea of what I've got and what I've missed and whatever else. So we'll do these. Like so. Okay. So we have all of those now set up correctly there. So if I go ahead and save that, close that down, go back into particle systems. Now what we need to do is actually go back into this one for the giants from the Farmer Simulator 17 installation folder, because they're named, they are in their own transform groups. So if I open this one up as it is, it's going to give me errors because it's not associated with the correct places. Okay, well it didn't give me errors, but it's not put them in the right places anyway, so I'm going to need to create those. At the end of the day, it might not give you errors in the Giants editor, but it will give you errors in game. So I need one for unloading, smoke, chopper, pipe, belt, and leveler. So what I'll do is I'm going to take the name from here, again just making sure spelling is correct by just copying and pasting, it's much easier. So if I come up to here, actually what I'll do is, how many have I got? I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So if I go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, paste that one into there. Let's do it. Yeah, no, that's fine. Let's do this. So we'll take that name from there, paste, chopper, let's take that one, and paste. Pipe. Paste. Oops. Belt. Paste that one on, and then should be, last of all, leveler. Come on, there we go. So let's do that. Okay, so we've now got all of our transform groups set up there, so I can actually close that one down. Then it's just a case of putting the appropriate parts in the appropriate places. So if you're not entirely sure, if you look through all of these and you have your user attributes window open, if you highlight them, it will actually tell you what material type it is. So this is unloading, so I need to take that one, cut it and put it into unloading. This one will be for smoke, so take that one and put it into smoke. This one is chopper, so I can take that one and put it into chopper. This one is for pipe, so I can take that one, and I'm just cutting and pasting with Control X and Control V. So I can take that one. This is for belt, so Control X, belt, Control V, and then this one is leveler, Control X, highlight leveler, Control V. Okay. So let's do all of that. Now it's important that the camera, as far as I know, is at the bottom. If it's at the top, it causes problems. Because the camera is literally there so you can see it in Giants Editor. That's all it is. It's for no other reason. Doesn't need it in game. But so when you have it at the top, it's going to load that first before it loads anything else, and then it will cause a problem. Whereas if it's the bottom, the engine will load all of these first and then ignore the camera because it's not required. So just make sure you have the camera at the bottom, not at the top. You can always look at the original setup if you actually go into the Giants version of it and just check that. You'll know that the camera's at the bottom for a reason, and that's what it's there. That's the reason for it. Okay, so now we have all of those set up in there. I can come back into the Farming Simulator installation folder, take the name from there for the effect map material holder or effect material holder, whatever you want to call it. So we'll make a copy of that name, file, save as, paste that name in, save, close that down, and I can now delete the other one there, like so. Okay, so we have our cutter effect and our effect material holder all set up. Fantastic. It's always worth just going through before you get too deep into things. Just open them up, make sure everything is displaying correctly, you have no errors in your console, and everything is where it's meant to be. Looking pretty good. Okay, so let's do the next one, which is particle material holder. This is not required, but it will add effects to your harvester. When you're cutting or harvesting the crop, you have the particle system where it shows like flakes of different things from the header and also from the rear of the harvester, from the ejector or whatever you call it at the back of the harvester. If you don't include them, then obviously it won't have those effects, so it can look a little bit bland, or it's not going to give it its fullest effect. So I like to add them, but again, it's not required. So I'll actually take the name from here to start with this time. We'll open this up and we'll just take these. Now, when you're working with these, it can be a little bit, can give a little bit of an issue. Now, from what I can understand, when this particular particle system for smoke was created, the actual wheat particle system was created in whatever program, probably Maya, and then the others were just duplications of wheat. So if I actually export maize, which is what I'm basing everything on here, and then open it in a separate Giants Editor session, it will cause the Giants Editor to crash because it's relying on this original particle system to make it all work, because these are all just duplications of wheat. or the smoke particle effect based on wheat. So what I'm going to need to do here is actually take out wheat as a smoke particle and then just rename everything as required. The others, you should be able to work with those for the appropriate fruit type you're going to base everything on. And if you actually have your material editing window open, you can come into here and then look to see what material type it's using. And this is actually using maize, whereas if we look at wheat, it's actually using wheat windrow. So these are actually separate particle systems that have been created probably in Maya, whereas the smoke particle is literally one has been created and then the others are duplicates of it. So you have to be a little bit careful when working with those. So what I'm going to do then is similar to what I did before. I'm just going to take wheat as my smoke particle, and I'm just going to choose maize as the others. So unloading particles, don't need that. Spreader, no. We're going to take the cutter chopper there. Don't need that one. Don't need that one. Don't need that one. So we should be pretty good. I'm going to take those. So I'm going to go File, Export Selection with Files. I'm going to go back to my desktop. and we'll create a new folder. We'll open this up, and this time I'm going to paste in the particle material holder name, and we'll do like so. Let's close that down for now. So if I actually take this from here, I'm going to take all of that, Control X to cut it, and we'll paste it in over here like so. And I'm also going to take the shader, Control X to cut that, go to my shaders folder, Control V to paste it in. I can now remove both of those, I don't need them anymore. Okay. So if I then come back into the particle system folder here, I'm going to obviously need to point everything in the right places. So if we come into here, those are all set up correctly. Those are all set up correctly. The only one I need to really change here is the fill type. Not worried too much about the rest of them because this is based around various different things. So I'm not going to change the names over to tobacco because it's not really relevant, but the only one I need to change is the fill type. So I'm just going to change this over to tobacco like so. So if I do like that and then like that, everything else there should be okay, so we'll save. And then if I open this up, this more likely will give me errors. Oh, okay. It didn't. Interesting. Okay, so we have particle effects, but they're obviously not categorized correctly because they need to be in certain transform groups. So again, what I'm going to do here is open up the Giants version in the Farming Simulator 17 installation folder. And I'm just going to take the names from here. So I have 1, 2, 3, just 3 in this particular case, I believe. So I'm going to need to create 3 new transform groups. So 1, 2, 3. So let's do that one. That one. And finally that one. Okay, I can now come back into here, close that down, I don't need that anymore. And we'll just take these and put them in the appropriate places. So again, I'll close the material editing window, don't need that. So if we come into here, you can see this is for smoke, because that's the particle type that it's using. So we'll take that one, Control X, smoke, Control V. This one is for chopper, so Control X, Control V, and this one is for cutter chopper. So we'll take that one and then put that into there like so. Again, making sure that your camera is at the bottom, because otherwise you'll end up with issues. I've already named it correctly, so I can literally just go ahead and save. Don't need to do any more. I don't need that anymore, so I can close that down. Okay, we now have all of our particle systems, fill planes and everything else all set up for our tobacco. So that's half an hour. I'm going to end the video here, and then we'll go a bit further into this in part 3. So again, I'm ShyWizard. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll catch you on the next one.